The world of tourism has been turned upside down, not just in Thailand, but around the world. Globally, it's certainly the hardest hit industry from the coronavirus pandemic, shutting down hotels, tour companies, grounding aeroplanes and putting millions out of work. Before we look at the latest situation and the predictions for Thailand, let's take a quick tour of some of the other world's top tourist spots and their experiments with reopening amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Dubai, with its huge chunks of expats and visitors, bit the bullet late last year to reopen for tourism and international visitors. While in Europe, the UK and America, the virus raged as the northern winter set in. The bustling city, which before the 70s was just a sandy coastal fishing port, has exploded into being a sparkling attraction for tourists. Over the past few months, it's provided a realistic escape from Europe, the few adventurous travellers trying to escape the brutal winter and strict coronavirus lockdowns. It helped that Emirates Airline was still providing services from most of the major hubs in Europe. But as tens of thousands of visitors flocked there to escape the cold, COVID-19 inevitably followed, despite precautions aimed at limiting its spread. Cases began to soar, nearly quadrupling since last November. In January, the UAE saw cases rise by 80,000 to more than 290,000, more than 4,000 infections a day being reported, putting the hospitals under strain. Back in November, influencers were paid to post photos of these sun-soaked beaches and long hot days. If you still had time, could travel, had disposable income and the desire, Dubai was an attractive magnet. But with a recent UK travel ban effectively cutting off what in December had become the world's busiest air route, a situation that's prompted a swift rethink of the UAE's COVID-19 measures. Halal Saeed Al Mari, the Director General of the Dubai Department of Tourism and Commerce, says, "We approach things in a very measured fashion, but it's our philosophy that we should work through this pandemic." The Maldives are another example where they threw caution to the wind and reopened for tourists late last year with minimal restrictions. The needs of the heavily tourist-based economy outweighed the public health risks. There too, there's been a spike in new COVID infections and deaths over the past month. In Costa Rica, after reaching a peak of 10 to 20 deaths per day from the coronavirus in September last year, the rate has continued unabated since, although there's been a very gradual decrease in the number of new infections. But the tourist numbers are still well below pre-COVID times. In 2019, Costa Rica had just over 3 million visitors. Last year, the Central American country hosted just 1 million visitors, the vast majority in the first quarter of 2020, before the shutters came down on borders around the world. Since reopening, some 75,000 tourists visited Costa Rica in December, down 80% for the year before, but officials say they're determined to keep the country open, hoping to be a magnet for any of the handful of world travellers. Right now, there's no official lockdown in Bali or Indonesia, but cases in the Southeast Asian country are soaring. During January, there were 12 to 14,000 new infections reported every day. World Health officials suspect the number is probably a lot higher. In Bali, you must wear a mask outside, markets have to close at 11 p.m, and besides, there are no direct international flights into Bali at the moment, and the Indonesian government has stopped issuing any visas at this time, whether for business or tourism. In Thailand, the gravity of the impact on the country's tourist sector appears to eventually have sunk in. After a year of hubris that the world's tourists were ready to burst through Thailand's doors, even the perennially positive TAT governor, Yuthicka Suparson, admitted that it will be another 2 to 3 years before any semblance of a tourist industry returns. His comments were made at the same time as industry leaders urged the Thai government to save what is left of the shattered tourism sector before it's too late and there's literally nothing for foreign tourists to return to. It was only 2 months ago that the Minister for Tourism and Sport announced Thailand could look forward to 10 million visitors in 2021. In January, he casually carved that prediction in half to just 5 million. A realistic prediction would probably be more like 500,000, but even that will require a few things falling in Thailand's favour in short order: large-scale vaccination of its population and a quick improvement in the world's infection rate and reopening of other countries' borders. For the latter, it's just impossible to track COVID-19 trends, especially as we're now seeing new variants of the virus popping up, challenging earlier treatment regimes and the possible effectiveness of the current vaccines rolling out around the world. For the former, the vacillation of the Thai government and the inability to announce firm starting dates for widespread vaccination has made local predictions about reopening impossible. Every week there's a new announcement about a new program, a vaccine passport, a new batch of alleged vaccines just about to land on Thailand's shores. The travel and hospitality industry jump on these scraps of information and write long essays about the imminent return of tourists to Thailand, only to have to eat their words days after when the government's promises evaporate again. The 2021 Chinese New Year will come and go, a purely domestic celebration this year. The next hope is Songkran, the biggest annual movement of Thais as they celebrate the Thai New Year. That will also be another purely domestic affair, but hopefully the local COVID situation will have settled down enough so that at least Thais will be able to freely travel on buses and planes to head home and go on a short holiday. But the TAT governor has guarded any predictions for the next few years with a warning for everyone in Thailand's tourism industry. In 3 words, he made it abundantly clear that the road ahead remains rocky. He said, "Grit your teeth."